You're watching TVC Breakfast. The death toll of Nigerians killed in South Africa has continued to rise with the frequent xenophobic attacks between 2016 and 2019.
Numbers show that more than 110 Nigerians have been killed between 2017 and 2019 so far. In June, Obiano Jundobisi Chukwu, a Nigerian insurance chief, was killed in a hotel room, and her death has sparked outrage, with the Nigerian Senate urging President Muhammadu Buhari to issue a travel alert on South Africa.
Now, the latest of the killings of Nigerians in South Africa is that of 17-year-old Chinonso Obiaju, who was killed in Johannesburg, and a 33-year-old taxify driver, Benjamin Okoronkwo, who was shot dead in his car around 3 a.m. on Saturday. The attackers, South Africans, cite a competition for jobs and incursion of criminals from other parts of Africa as reasons for their outbursts against black foreigners in the country. Former presidential candidate and journalist Victor Okai joins me now to take a look at this. Victor, good morning. It's good to have you join me now.
Good morning.
Now, when it comes to the attack on Nigerians, especially in some African countries like South Africa and maybe even Ghana, a lot of Nigerians often say government should do something about it, government should do something about it, but government never does anything about it apart from just one or two mention of we are going to do this, but no action is usually taken.
Well, it's unfortunate that the Nigerian life is seemingly not worth very much outside of this country. And it's a perception that has been reinforced by the attitude of the embassies in these countries. You don't, an American citizen, for example, in any country at all, even if he committed a crime, as soon as he's arrested, the embassy would move in immediately, provide a lawyer or take an interest in the case. I mean, that's just an arrest, not even a murder, okay? But what you find outside of this country is that the embassy officials are cocooned. They look at themselves like a privileged set of people in this country. But
on the other hand,
yes,
if you have to look at it critically, sometimes there is also the talk about the inadequate data where these people are identified as Nigerians only because the name is Obianuju, or the name is Okechukwu, or the name is Ahmed, or the name is Adeyinka, as the case may be. There is no data to show, okay, these are Nigerians, so no proper record. So how does government act when it gets to hear on the media that these are Nigerians who are attacked?
That's rather simplistic. Okay. It's not every day you get a Tanzanian or South African answer the name of Obianuju, for instance. And there's a Nigerian community. I mean, so if Nigerians have identified a person as a Nigerian, then there's no reason to argue otherwise, because it means therefore that he has roots. There are people who know him, who know his family back home, and also in the level of interaction. You cannot go and impersonate being a Nigerian in another place. And so I think that the embassies need to be proactive, and one of the things that we need to do is, whatever the situation is, like a father with children, with a child, even a bad child, if your child commits an offense, you go in there first, you protect the child while doing whatever it is you want to do. Nigerians do not need to feel orphaned, like they don't have anyone looking after their interests.
All right, when it comes to more civilized way of approaching these issues, we've often heard some people say, okay, government should go after South African interests in the country, either revoke licenses and things like that. But others have said that is not a civilized way of engagement. If we have to look at real civilized ways of engagement, how should government, Nigerian government, engage South Africans or South African government in trying to handle this kind of occurrences?
I'm not talking about that. Let me talk about governments generally. You see, we tend to be reactive rather than being proactive. And the proactive way is to let citizens of other countries and governments of other countries know that Nigerian lives matter, that you don't toy with a Nigerian, even if he's a criminal Nigerian, okay? That if he's a Nigerian, if you go after one Nigerian, the Nigerian government will go after you. You know, if that is established, And in the case of South Africa, if that is established, is a point to be made. I would usually give this example of a husband. If you treat your wife like a queen, everyone around you will treat her like a queen. But if you treat your wife like dirt, even the servants in the house will take the cue and they'll have no respect for your wife. Again, you know, in these countries, the government, in addition to treating, letting these countries know that Nigerian lives matter, for South Africa in particular, I think that the current generation of South Africans don't know the history of Nigeria.
Of our relationship.
Someone has to tell the story. You see, when you have cultural agencies, for instance, like the Goethe Institute in Nigeria, the French Alliance Française, for instance, and all that, or some of these cultural agencies, it is to engage. You know, they engage with journalists, they engage with students, they engage with young people in the country, and let them know about the culture, the language, and the people. In the same vein, we owe it a duty to let these people know the history that we have, where we're coming from, and that's like PR, so they understand that we are one people, that we are for them, we're not against them. But that engagement, which is the primary duty of the embassy in these countries, or the High Commissioner, as the case may be, is not being undertaken. Right. And that's why we're suffering, that's why we're having the problems we're having.
All right, we look forward to greater days ahead for them to know, and for Nigeria also to take, at least they say charity begins at home, so, so that the husband can begin to respect his wife before others even do the respecting too. Yeah. Thank you very much, Victor Hai, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Right.